I'm about to show you something that sounds impossible. A single green leaf, one you can grow in a pot on your own windowsill, that is 200 to 300 times sweeter than sugar. Not a little sweeter, 200 times. A pinch of it does the work of a whole spoonful of sugar. And here is the part that sounds made up. It has almost no calories, and it does not raise your blood sugar at all. No spike, no crash, nothing. A person with diabetes can use it. A person watching their weight can use it. It is sweet, it is natural, it grows on a plant, and human beings have been using it for hundreds of years. This is not a chemical cooked up in a lab with a warning on the box. It is a leaf. So here's the question that should already be bothering you. If a sweet, natural, zero-calorie leaf like this has existed the whole time, then why have you never once used it? Why isn't it in everything? Why did you grow up on white sugar and little packets of artificial chemicals instead? And you might think you'll simply have to wonder about that. You won't, because the answer is one of the strangest stories in the history of food in this country. For 17 years, the government of the United States kept this leaf off your grocery shelves. 17 years while the rest of the world, Japan most of all, was using it by the ton. It was not kept from you because it was dangerous. It was kept from you, a great many people believe, because it was a threat, a cheap, natural, unpatentable threat to a very profitable business. This is not clickbait, and it is not a health fad. This is botany, and it is history. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly what this leaf is, exactly why it does what it does, exactly how to use it in your own kitchen, and exactly why it spent 17 years locked out of it. Stay with me. But before I tell you what it is, I have to explain the problem it solves. Because if you do not understand what sugar actually does inside your body, you will never understand why this leaf matters as much as it does. When you eat sugar, your body breaks it down into glucose, and that glucose floods into your bloodstream fast. Your blood sugar spikes. And a spike in blood sugar is not a small thing. Your pancreas has to respond immediately, dumping out a hormone called insulin, whose job is to shove all that sugar out of your blood and into your cells before it does damage. So the sugar goes up like a rocket. The insulin comes rushing in to knock it back down, and then your blood sugar crashes, often lower than where it started. And that crash is why, an hour after a sugary snack, you feel tired, foggy, and hungry all over again, reaching for more sugar to climb back up. Up and crash. Up and crash. Several times a day, for years. Now, do that thousands of times over a lifetime, the way the modern diet is built to make you do, and it adds up. The average person in this country eats an enormous amount of added sugar without even trying, because it is hidden in nearly everything on the shelf. And that constant demand on your body, the endless spikes, the endless flood of insulin, is tied to some of the most common health problems of our age. This is exactly why so many people are desperate for a way to keep the sweetness they love without the blood sugar roller coaster underneath it. And that is precisely the problem this leaf solves. So let me tell you how most people have tried to solve it, because it explains why this leaf is different. There have really only been two options. Option 1 is sugar itself, and everything sugar does to your blood, which we just covered. Option 2 is the little colored packets, the artificial sweeteners, saccharin, and aspartame, and sucralose. Now, those are intensely sweet and they have no calories, which sounds like the answer. But they are synthetic chemicals built in a laboratory, and a great many people would simply rather not pour a lab chemical into their coffee every morning, and those chemicals have been the subject of decades of argument and unease. So you have been handed two doors, the sugar that spikes your blood, or the synthetic packet a lot of folks quietly distrust. What almost nobody told you is that there was always a third door, and it grows on a plant. Here it is. The leaf is called Stevia. The plant's full name is Stevia rebaudiana, and it is a small, unassuming green shrub native to Paraguay and Brazil in South America. And this is not some new discovery. The Guarani people of that region have used this leaf for hundreds of years. They called it caji, which means simply sweet herb. They chewed the leaves. They dropped them into their yerba mate and their teas and their medicines to sweeten them. For centuries, this was ordinary knowledge to them, that there was a leaf in the forest that was sweeter than anything else they had, and that it did them no harm. You can buy that same leaf today, dried and powdered, or as a purified extract, or as a little bottle of liquid drops, for just a few dollars. Its power is entirely in the natural compounds locked inside the green leaf. Now here is how it works. And this is the part I find genuinely remarkable. The sweetness in stevia comes from a family of natural compounds called steviol glycosides, and these compounds are, drop for drop, 200 to 300 times sweeter than sugar, which is why the tiniest amount goes so incredibly far. But here is the crucial part, the part that makes it different from sugar in the way that actually matters. When you eat these steviol glycosides, your body does not break them down for energy the way it breaks down sugar. They pass through your system largely unabsorbed. Your gut bacteria break them down and your body simply passes them out. They are never turned into glucose. They never enter your bloodstream as sugar. And because of that, they cause no blood sugar spike and no insulin flood, and they carry essentially no calories. You get the sweetness on your tongue, the full intensity of it, and your blood sugar never even knows it happened. That is the whole miracle, and it is not magic. It is just the chemistry of a leaf your body cannot turn into sugar. Now let me tell you the history, because the history is the reason you were never told any of this. And it starts on the other side of the world. Back in the 1970s, Japan decided to move away from artificial sweeteners, and they turned to stevia instead. And for decades, quietly and safely, stevia became one of the most widely used sweeteners in Japan. In their soft drinks, their foods, their tabletop packets, used by millions of people every day for years and years with an extraordinary record of safety. The rest of the world had the answer. It worked. It was proven at massive scale. And then there is what happened here. In 1991, the United States Food and Drug Administration labeled stevia an unsafe food additive and effectively blocked it from being sold as a sweetener in this country. And here is the detail that has made people suspicious ever since. That action was taken. It later came out on the basis of an anonymous complaint, a complaint whose source the agency never made public to this day. The official reason given was a lack of safety data. But look at the context. Just a decade earlier, in the early 1980s, the artificial sweetener aspartame had been approved. And it was exploding into a multi-billion-dollar business, poured into diet sodas and packets across the entire country. And now here comes a natural zero-calorie sweetener that anyone could grow, that no company could patent and own, and it gets quietly declared unsafe on an anonymous tip. I am not going to tell you I can prove who made that call or why. Nobody can, because the complaint was anonymous. But a great many people have looked at that timing and drawn the obvious conclusion that a cheap, natural, unpatentable competitor was extremely inconvenient to a very powerful and very profitable industry. And here is what happened next. In 1994, a new law allowed stevia to be sold in this country, but only as a dietary supplement, not as a sweetener. So, for years, this was the absurd situation. You could walk into a health food store and buy stevia off the shelf. As long as the label called it a supplement and did not dare call it what everyone knew, it was a sweetener. It sat in a strange legal limbo, kept just out of reach of the mainstream. It was not until 2008-17, years after that first ban, that the FDA finally granted approval to a high-purity form of stevia. And suddenly, the big companies rushed in with their own stevia sweeteners on every shelf. 17 years. That is how long a proven, natural, harmless sweetener was kept out of the American kitchen while the artificial packets reigned. And the moment it was finally allowed, it became a household name almost overnight, which tells you it was never the science holding it back. So let me tell you exactly how to use it, because there are a few things you need to know to get it right. Stevia comes in a few forms. There is the whole green leaf powder, which is the most natural and least processed, but it is greenish and it has the strongest aftertaste. There is the purified white extract, often the compound called ribadioside A or Reb A, which is far cleaner tasting and is what most tabletop stevia is made from. And there are liquid drops, which are wonderful for drinks. The single most important thing to understand is how little you need. Because it is 200 to 300 times sweeter than sugar, a tiny pinch of powder or a drop or two of liquid will sweeten a whole cup. If you use it like sugar, spoon for spoon, you will make something so sweet it is undrinkable. Start with almost nothing and add up. Use it in your coffee and tea, in yogurt, in oatmeal, in smoothies, in lemonade and iced drinks where it shines. And you can grow the plant yourself in a pot on a sunny sill. Pick the leaves, dry them, and sweeten with your own homegrown leaf, which is about as close to the Guarani way as you can get. Now, let me be honest with you about the catches, because I would rather you trust me than come back disappointed. The first catch is the taste. Stevia has a distinct aftertaste that some people describe as bitter or a little like licorice, and it is strongest in the cheap green leaf forms. If your first try is a bad green powder and you hate it, do not give up on stevia. Try a good, purified Reb A or a quality liquid, which are far cleaner and often blended with other natural sweeteners to round them out. The second catch is baking. Sugar does more than sweeten. It browns, it caramelizes, it gives cakes their bulk and structure. Stevia does none of that, so you cannot simply swap it into a cake recipe cup for cup. For baking, use a stevia blend made for it, or a recipe built around it. The third thing you should know is a matter of honesty about what is actually approved. The high-purity steviol glycosides, the Reb A kind, are the forms recognized as safe and used in mainstream food. The crude whole leaf and rough extracts sit in that older supplement category. Both are sold, but I want you to know the distinction rather than have me gloss over it. And here is a practical warning that will save you, because it trips up almost everyone. Many of those little stevia packets on the shelf are not pure stevia at all. Stevia is so intensely sweet that a packet of the pure extract would be a nearly invisible speck. So companies bulk it out with other ingredients to make it pour and measure like sugar, and some of them use fillers like dextrose or maltodextrin, which are themselves forms of sugar, and which can nudge your blood sugar up. The very thing you came to stevia to avoid in the first place. So read the label every time. If your goal is truly no blood sugar spike, look for pure stevia extract, or a stevia blended with erythritol, a natural sugar alcohol that also does not raise your blood sugar and helps round out the taste and steer clear of the ones bulked up with dextrose or malt. The word stevia, in big letters on the front of the box, does not always mean pure stevia inside the packet. And that single detail is the difference between getting what you came for and quietly defeating the whole purpose. And the most important thing of all, this is not medical advice. If you have diabetes or you take any medication that affects your blood sugar, talk to your doctor before you change anything, because your situation is your own and it deserves a real professional's eyes, not a video's. Let me tell you what happened when I finally made the switch myself. For years, I took 2 heaping spoons of sugar in my coffee, twice a day, without thinking about it, and I was tired of the mid-morning crash that always followed. So I tried stevia. And I will be honest, my first attempt was a cheap green powder, and I nearly threw the whole idea out because the aftertaste was strong and strange and I did not care for it at all. I almost decided the whole thing was overhyped. But someone told me the same thing I just told you, that the form matters, so I tried a good liquid stevia instead. Just a couple of drops, and it was a completely different experience. Clean, sweet, no crash chasing me an hour later. It took me about a week to dial in exactly how many drops I liked, because a little goes so far. But I have not put sugar in my coffee since, and the afternoon slump that I always blamed on a long day turned out for me to have been the sugar all along. The leaf was better. It was just never on the shelf where I could find it. Let me put the cost in perspective, because it is almost funny. A small bottle of good stevia costs a few dollars and lasts a very long time because you use so little of it. A packet of stevia plants, or even seeds, costs almost nothing, and one plant will give you leaves all season. Compare that to a lifetime of buying sugar by the bag and a lifetime of the health toll that comes with it. This was never expensive. It was never rare. It was just kept out of your reach. Let me answer the questions I know are coming. Is it actually safe? The high-purity forms are recognized as safe by regulators. There is a defined, acceptable daily intake, and Japan used it safely on a massive scale for decades before it was ever allowed here. The safety record is genuinely strong. Is it safe for children? In normal food amounts, it is generally considered fine, though if you are pregnant or nursing, ask your doctor first, as you should with anything. Does it really not spike your blood sugar? For the purified steviol glycosides, yes, that is well established. Why the aftertaste then? It comes from the particular mix of compounds in the leaf. The Reb A form and good blends largely solve it. Can you bake with it? Yes, but not as a straight one-to-one swap. Use a blend made for baking. Can you really grow it? Yes, easily in a pot in the sun. And is natural always safer? Not automatically, and I will not pretend it is, but in this case, the science and the decades of real-world use line up behind it, which is exactly why the 17-year story is so hard to explain on the science alone. I want to leave you with one thought, the thing I keep coming back to. We are told over and over that the modern, manufactured, patented version of a thing must be the better one, that the old, natural answer was primitive or unproven or somehow not to be trusted. And sometimes that is true, but sometimes it is exactly backwards. Here was a sweet green leaf, used safely for hundreds of years, embraced by an entire nation on the other side of the world. That could give people the sweetness they craved without the sugar their bodies could not handle. And it was kept off the shelves of this country for 17 years, while the artificial packets nobody could grow at home. You do not have to believe every theory about exactly who did what and why. You only have to ask the one question that cuts through all of it. Who benefited from you never knowing? And then decide, with your own doctor and your own good sense, what belongs in your own kitchen. Because now, at least, you know the leaf exists. Tell me down in the comments, had you ever heard this story before? And what do you use to sweeten your coffee right now? I read every one. Next time, I'm going to show you the forgotten root that got Americans through the war years when coffee vanished from the shelves. A plant that grows wild along the roadside that they roasted and brewed and drank every morning. And that a few people quietly still swear is better than the real thing. Subscribe so you do not miss it. And remember, the people who came before us and the people the industry would rather you never learned from knew a great many things we would do well to remember.